March 8, 1944. 20,000 feet above Nazi-occupied France. The air is thin, bitter, and metallic, cold enough to burn exposed skin, loud enough that even inside the cockpit, the roar of the R-2800 engine feels like a living beast clawing at its restraints. Captain James Tex Morrison presses his gloved hand against the throttle of his P-47D Thunderbolt, feeling the vibration travel up through his arm and into his ribs. Already aching from a week-old injury he refuses to admit still hurts. Below him, the world is a patchwork of gray winter fields, German roads, and smoke drifting from chimneys in occupied towns. Above him, nothing but the empty, waiting sky. And behind him, death. A Messerschmitt Bf-109 dives into view, sliding into position like a predator finally revealing itself. Yellow nose, dark green wings. The sharp shimmer of sunlight on a gun sight aligned perfectly with Tex's tail. The German pilot isn't firing. Not yet. He's waiting. Waiting for Tex to make one wrong move, one overcorrection, one panic dive to bleed too much speed, one attempt to climb where the Thunderbolt is weakest. Tex mutters under his breath, "Come on, you bastard. Make your play." But the German doesn't. He just sits there, like a cat watching a wounded animal wear itself out. Tex can practically feel the man smirking behind his oxygen mask. P-47s were a joke to them, the flying milk bottle, the 7-ton milk jug. Too big, too heavy, too clumsy to compete with the sleek, nimble Bf-109. But Tex knows something the German doesn't. The Thunderbolt has a secret hiding in plain sight behind its bulk, behind its weight. No aircraft in the European theater can match it in a dive. Not the Messerschmitt, not the Focke-Wulf. Nothing. But diving means burning fuel he barely has. It means pushing an engine already overheating. It means falling into German territory with no wingman, no support, and a man behind him who knows exactly how vulnerable he is. Tex glances at his fuel gauge. Low, too low. His temperature gauge, redlining. The engine coughs, shudders, then steadies again. He wipes the frost forming on the inside of his canopy. His heart slams against his ribs. The German closes in, a slow, confident creep. The distance shrinks. 300 yards, 250, 200. Tex can actually see the man now. The goggles, the tight leather helmet, the way his head tilts slightly, studying the P-47 as if deciding where to begin carving it apart. Tex breathes once, slow and steady. Then he does the one thing the German doesn't expect. He lets go. He loosens his grip on the stick, lets the Thunderbolt's nose wobble, lets the wings tilt erratically, just enough to mimic the first signs of a spin. The P-47 shudders, dips, rolls. To the German, it looks like panic. A pilot losing control. A pilot about to die. The Bf-109 pounces, dropping its nose, diving in to finish the kill. Tex slams his hand down on the throttle. Gotcha. The Thunderbolt snaps downward, violently, deliberately, into a near vertical dive. Gravity grabs the aircraft like a fist and hurls it toward the earth. The airframe screams, the canopy rattles, the wind tears at the wings so hard the plane feels moments from disintegration. The German follows. But Tex isn't panicking anymore. He's hunting. He flips the armament switches. 8 50 cal Browning machine guns come alive with a deep electrical hum. He feels the weight of them. The promise of destruction. The incendiary rounds sitting in their belts like coiled lightning. The distance closes. 150 yards. 50. Tex pulls the nose up just enough to line up the Messerschmitt at point-blank range. Then he presses the trigger. The Thunderbolt erupts with fire. The 50 cal guns roar so violently the whole aircraft vibrates. Incendiary tracers streak through the dive, carving molten lines across the sky. They hit the Bf-109's wings, its fuselage, its engine cowling, and then, suddenly, a flash. A blossom of orange flame bursts from the German's fuel tank. The fighter jerks sideways, trailing fire, then disintegrates in a single tearing explosion. Pieces whip past Tex's canopy, shards of metal, scraps of wing, a spinning propeller blade that misses him by yards. Tex yanks back on the stick. The horizon spins. The ground rushes up. He levels out at the last second, lungs burning, engine screaming, every gauge in the cockpit telling him he's seconds from total failure. But he's alive, and the German isn't. Tex allows himself one breath of relief. One. Because now, inside enemy territory, low on fuel, with an overheating engine and no friendly airfield within reach, the fight is only beginning. The smell hits him first. Burning oil. Thick, bitter, impossible to ignore. It seeps through the vents and clings to the back of his throat. Tex wipes his glove across his mouth, as if he could push the taste away. But the cockpit is turning into a metal oven. The temperature needle surges again, pushing past anything the manual tolerates. The R-2800 coughs once, then again. A deep, ragged shudder travels through the airframe. Tex knows engines. Grew up around them, flew them, broke them, fixed them. And this one is dying. Hold together, he mutters. Just a few more minutes. But even he doesn't believe that. Below, France stretches out in all directions, dark pine forests, winter fields, thin roads where German supply trucks crawl like ants. There's no friendly airfield, no P-47 squadron, no chance of making it back to England. Just occupied territory and a dead airplane. He taps the fuel gauge again. The needle barely moves, almost empty. A buzz crackles in his headset, static, broken radio chatter, then silence again. His squadron is long gone. Either they think he's dead, or they're too deep into their own dogfights to break free. Tex is alone in every way that matters. He scans the sky one more time. Nothing. No Messerschmitts diving in. No Focke-Wulfs. Just gray clouds closing overhead like the lid of a coffin. The engine sputters hard this time. Fire flickers briefly from the exhaust stack. The propeller loses grab and the Thunderbolt's nose begins to droop. Tex knows what that means. He reaches down, flips open the emergency landing checklist. But the wind tears the page loose and whips it out through a crack in the canopy seal. Fine, he growls. We'll do it the hard way. He lowers the nose gently, maintaining as much control as the dying engine allows. The trees below are growing larger, too large. He needs flat land, a field, a road. Anything that won't tear the Thunderbolt apart on impact. He spots something. A stretch of pale earth between patches of forest, rough farmland, uneven and narrow. But it's the only option he's got. The propeller jitters, slows, then becomes a blur of slowing silver. The engine finally quits, one last shuddering groan, and dies. The cockpit goes eerily quiet. All Tex hears is the wind slicing past the canopy and the ticking of hot metal cooling under sudden silence. He trims the controls, angles the descent, and braces. The ground rushes up. Fast, too fast. The Thunderbolt hits. The landing gear collapses instantly. The aircraft skids across frozen dirt, tearing a furrow through the field. Tex's harness snaps tight across his chest. Test. and pain rips through his ribs, white hot, blinding. The canopy cracks, dust fills the cockpit, and loose equipment slams into his legs. Then, an explosion of wood. The left wing catches a fence post, wrenching the aircraft sideways. The world spins. Something heavy smashes into his shoulder. The right wing shears off completely, cartwheeling ahead in a shower of splinters and soil. The fuselage grinds to a halt only when it plows into a low earthen ridge. Silence follows. A long, suffocating silence. Tex tries to breathe. The pain refuses to let him. He reaches up, unclips his oxygen mask, and the movement sends a stab of agony down his rib cage. Broken. Definitely broken. He pushes the shattered canopy open and half crawls, half falls out onto cold mud. The Thunderbolt is a ruin. A broken hulk still smoking, its proud nose buried in earth. The smell of oil and gasoline hangs in the air like a warning. Tex staggers to his feet, grabs the closest thing he can reach, his emergency pack, and limps toward the tree line. Every breath feels like a knife. His vision blurs in and out. Behind him, a distant rumble echoes. Vehicles, German patrols. Someone must have seen the crash or heard it. They're coming, fast. He slips into the woods just as voices shout in German across the field. Tex pushes deeper, crunching through frost and pine needles. Every few steps he has to stop, press an arm against his ribs, and focus through the pain. Darkness gathers under the canopy, and the cold becomes sharper, sinking into his flight suit. Then he sees it. A small barn, half collapsed, hidden between rows of skeletal trees. He forces himself toward it, slipping inside through a broken plank. The interior smells of hay and damp earth. Dust drifts in the shafts of late afternoon light. Tex crawls into the hayloft, buries himself beneath the musty layers, and finally allows himself to breathe. His hands tremble. His ribs throb. Sweat chills on his skin. He reaches into his jacket. A photo. His wife, smiling, holding her belly. 7 months pregnant. Tex runs his thumb across her face. This is why he's still moving. This is why he can't get caught. Outside, the sound of boots grows louder. German voices. Search dogs barking. Soldiers sweep through the woods, methodical and close. One of them walks so near the barn that Tex can hear the crunch of frost under each step. He buries his head deeper into the hay. Every muscle tightens. The war in the sky may have ended for him today. But the war on the ground is only beginning. The footsteps stop. Right beside the barn wall. Tex freezes. Every muscle tightened to the point of trembling. Even breathing feels dangerous. The hay scratches his face, his ribs burn with every shallow inhale, and the wooden slats above him creak under the faint winter wind. A German voice barks something, sharp, irritated. Another voice answers. Boots shift in the frost. Through the thin gaps between the boards, Tex sees shadows moving, rifles slung, helmets glinting in the dying afternoon light. A dog sniffs along the ground, growing closer, tail stiff, nose working. Tex's heart pounds so hard, it vibrates the hay around him. The dog reaches the barn door. It whines. Paws scrape at the frozen earth. Then, a sharp whistle. The handler tugs the dog away, muttering. Tex closes his eyes as the patrol moves off toward the far edge of the woods. The voices fade. The boots crunch softer. The dog's whine becomes distant. But he doesn't move. Not yet. Not for a long time. Only when the forest sinks into dusk, its shadows stretching long and blue, does Tex dare shift. The pain in his ribs is a deep, throbbing bruise that radiates through his whole chest. His flight suit is torn, his fingers are numb, and the cold is settling in like a second enemy. He crawls out from under the hay slowly, wincing with every movement, every breath. The barn is darker now, filled with drifting motes and the smell of old wood. He needs distance, needs to stay ahead of the patrols, needs shelter, food, water, a plan. Tex pushes open a loose board and peers out. The forest sits still, silent. But silence in enemy territory means nothing. He steps out, pulling his jacket tighter, swallowing a groan as pain knifes through his ribs. He forces his legs into motion, step by slow step, moving deeper into the woods. Each branch crackle feels like a gunshot. Each owl call sounds like a signal. Tex keeps the photo of his wife in an inner pocket, close to his heart, as if the touch of it could anchor him against the cold spreading through his bones. The moon rises above the pines, a thin crescent, pale and sharp. The temperature drops fast. Frost whitens the leaves. Somewhere in the distance, a motor hums, then another. German trucks, maybe infantry carriers, crawling along the road he crashed near. He stays off the paths, moving between dense stands of trees, leaning against trunks whenever the pain becomes too much. Hours pass. The woods grow black and vast. At last he sees a glow, a faint light, low, flickering, maybe a farmhouse hearth behind shuttered windows. Tex crouches behind a fallen log and watches it for several minutes. No movement outside. No voices. No patrols. But any door in occupied France could hide danger or salvation. And his luck has already been stretched thin. He edges closer, moving slow, using the trees as cover. At 50 yards, he hears something. A creaking door. Then quiet conversation in French. A woman's voice. A man's reply. Calm, domestic, ordinary. Tex's throat tightens. Resistance or collaborators? He can't risk knocking. Not yet. He circles around, creeping to the back, and spots a shed with a broken door hanging crookedly on its hinges. It's filled with firewood, tools, a wheelbarrow. Nothing else. But the roof is intact, and the smell of dry timber is a welcome change from the icy wind. He slips inside, lowers himself onto a pile of burlap sacks, and finally exhales. His breath forms ghosts in the air. His hands shake uncontrollably, part exhaustion, part cold, part pain. He leans back against the wall and closes his eyes. Just for a moment. Just until the shaking stops. But the moment stretches, minutes slipping away, swallowed by the night. Outside, an owl hoots. Leaves rustle. A cart wheels in the distance. Tex drifts in and out of sleep, haunted by the crash, the fireball of the Messerschmitt, the look of the German pilot inches before his fighter exploded. He jolts awake to the crunch of footsteps approaching the shed. Slow. Careful. Not German boots. Softer. Lighter. The door creaks. Tex's hand snaps to the pistol strapped under his flight suit. The door swings wider. A silhouette stands in the frame, small, holding a lantern that casts long shadows across the ground. A girl, no more than 11 or 12. Dark hair, thin arms, eyes wide with fear and curiosity. She whispers, trembling, in accented English, "Are you American?" Tex lowers the pistol a fraction, but only a fraction. The lantern light flickers against her face as she steps inside. She glances over her shoulder as if expecting someone to follow. Then she whispers again, almost too softly to hear. "My father says the Germans are coming back at sunrise." Tex's blood runs cold. He sits up despite the pain, staring at the girl. She takes a shaky breath. "You must leave. Now." Tex pushes himself upright, stifling the groan tearing up his ribs. The lantern's glow dances over the rough wooden walls, flickering across the girl's frightened face. She's breathing fast, her small chest rising and falling under a patched wool sweater. "Easy now," Tex whispers, voice gravel low. "Why? What did your father say?" She bites her lip and glances behind her again, as if Germans might materialize from the darkness. "They came to the house," she says. "2 soldiers. They asked if we heard a crash. My father said no, but..." Her voice thins. "They didn't believe him. They said they would return at sunrise with more soldiers to search everything." Tex's stomach knots. A full search party with trained dogs, and he's barely standing. "How far is sunrise?" Tex asks. The girl lifts the lantern just enough to reveal her pale, worried eyes. 2 hours, maybe less." Tex closes his eyes for a breath. He can't stay. He won't put this family at risk. Not for him. He starts to stand, but his legs buckle and he falls to one knee, catching himself against a stack of wood. The girl sucks in a sharp breath, stepping closer. "You are hurt." Tex forces a half smile. "I've been better." She sets the lantern on a tool bench and digs into her coat pocket, pulling out a small, cloth-wrapped bundle. She unfolds it to reveal crusts of bread, a bit of hard cheese, and a tin flask of water. "My mother sent this," she says. "She said, if he is American, he is friend." Tex swallows hard, not because he's hungry, but because kindness hits deeper than cold. He nods. "Tell your mother I'm grateful." The girl looks at his side. "Can you walk?" "Doesn't matter," Tex says. "I have to." She hesitates, then reaches out and takes his gloved hand, small fingers gripping with surprising strength. "Come," she whispers. "There is a way into the forest that the Germans do not know. My father uses it to hunt." Tex lets her help him stand. Every movement is agony. Every breath sets fire under his ribs. But he forces himself forward, leaning on the wall until he finds his balance. The girl picks up the lantern and blows it out. The shed plunges into darkness. She opens the door just enough to slip through. Tex follows her out into the freezing night. The moon casts a pale shimmer over the fields. Frost coats the grass. The farmhouse sits dark and quiet, its shutters closed tight. But smoke from the chimney suggests the family is awake, watching, worrying. The girl leads him around the back of the property, down a narrow ditch between rows of bare apple trees. Her steps are quick, light, and silent. At the edge of the orchard, she stops beside what looks like a tangled wall of dead vines. She pushes them aside to reveal a narrow gap between 2 massive stones. "Go through," she whispers. "It will take you into the deep woods. If you follow the stream you find there, it leads south. There are people who can help you. Maybe the resistance." Tex stares at her. This child, risking everything. "What's your name?" he asks. She hesitates, then whispers, "Elise." He nods. "Elise, you saved my life." She shrugs, shy, frightened, proud all at once. "My father says the Americans will save France. So, we must help the Americans." Tex's throat tightens. He reaches into his jacket and pulls out a small silver insignia, an old squadron pin he'd carried for luck. He presses it into her hand. "For you." Her eyes widen, gleaming. She closes her fingers around it as if it were treasure. Voices echo in the distance, German voices. A vehicle door slams, a dog barks, then another. They're closer than before. Elise flinches. Tex forces his voice steady. Go back, now. Don't look back. She nods once, a small, terrified motion, then runs toward the farmhouse, disappearing between the trees. Tex turns toward the gap in the stones, slips through, and feels branches close around him. The deep woods swallow him completely. He limps down the hidden trail, breath sharp and shallow. His lungs ache, his vision swims, but he pushes on. Every few minutes he hears something. Engines, shouts, dogs, but distant, muffled by the thick forest. Frost crunches under his boots. His side screams with pain, and the dark woods stretch on endlessly, an icy maze of shadows and silence. At last he hears it. Water, a stream. He stumbles toward the sound and collapses against a mossy tree trunk. The stream flows black and cold in the moonlight. He cups some water in shaky hands and drinks, the cold jolting him awake. He splashes his face, wiping blood and grime from his chin. Then he hears it. Another sound. Not water, not wind. Footsteps. Light, cautious, deliberate. Someone is following him. Tex freezes, listening. Another step, and another. He reaches slowly for the pistol under his jacket. The footsteps stop just beyond the trees. Someone whispers, too faint to understand. Tex steadies his breath, finger on the trigger. Then, a silhouetted figure steps into view. Not a German soldier, but not a civilian either. A man in a worn coat, holding a carbine at the ready, a scarf covering half his face. A French tricolor patch stitched crudely onto his sleeve. The man stares at Tex for a long, tense moment. Then he speaks quietly, firmly, in accented English. If you want to live, come with me. Tex doesn't lower the pistol, not yet. The man's carbine is angled downward, but his stance is practiced, balanced, ready. The kind of readiness that's been carved by months, maybe years, of fighting a hidden war. The man steps closer, boots silent on the frost. You are Captain Morrison, he says, his English rough but certain. Tex stiffens. How do you know that? The man taps his scarf. We listen. We watch the Germans. They speak of an American pilot who fell from the sky today. A lucky man who shot down a Messerschmitt before crashing. His eyes flick downward to Tex's torn flight suit, the dried blood, the trembling hands. Lucky, but not for long if you stay here. Tex finally eases his grip on the pistol, though he doesn't holster it. You resistance? He asks. The man nods once. Maquis. Then he turns and gestures sharply. Come, before they find your footprints. Tex stumbles after him, each step a fresh stab of pain. His breath frosts the air. The forest seems to press in from every side, branches like skeletal hands reaching through the dark. Name's Tex, he mutters between clenched teeth. I know, the man says without looking back. I am Beaumont. Well, Beaumont, thanks for the rescue. Beaumont gives a soft, humorless snort. Do not thank me. Thank the girl's father. He sent us word. He said an American was bleeding in his woods. Tex blinks. Elise's father. That quiet conversation by firelight. He must have slipped outside after the soldiers left. Risked everything just to get a message to the Maquis. Is his family safe? Tex asks. Beaumont keeps walking. For now. But this area is dangerous. The Germans tighten their sweeps each week. They search for us, for downed pilots, for anyone who helps them. Tex nods grimly. I know the type. Then you understand, Beaumont says. We cannot stay long. They move through brambles and brush, following what looks like nothing but shadow. But every time Tex stumbles toward the wrong direction, Beaumont's hand snaps out, pulling him back onto a hidden trail. Finally, through the trees, Tex sees faint orange flickers. Firelight. A small encampment lies tucked between a ring of boulders, so well hidden he wouldn't have noticed it, even from 10 yards away. 2 armed Maquis fighters stand guard, rifles lowered but tense. They watch Tex approach, assessing him with the hardened suspicion of men who've been betrayed before. Beaumont raises a hand. "Americain," he says. The guards nod in part. Tex steps into the clearing. A fire crackles low in a pit. 3 resistance fighters sit around it, patching gear, cleaning weapons, murmuring in low French. One of them, a woman with a bandage around her arm and soot streaked across her cheek, looks up sharply at Tex. Beaumont gestures to her. "This is Claire. She will tend your injuries." Claire stands without a word, grabs a satchel of medical supplies, and motions brusquely. "Sit." Tex lowers himself onto a log by the fire. Claire tears open his flight suit to inspect the bruising. Her brow furrows. "Several ribs broken," she says. "Lucky they did not puncture anything." "Lucky," Tex groans. "Seems to be the word of the day." She presses a cool cloth to his side. Tex hisses through his teeth. Across the fire, Beaumont unrolls a crude map, hand-drawn, patched together from torn scraps. "The Germans will search this entire region by dawn," Beaumont says. "And if they find us, they will kill us." He taps the map with a gloved finger. "But there is a safe house, 20 kilometers south, a farm with underground rooms, radio, supplies. If we reach it, they can get you to Spain, or back to England." Twice the distance Tex could walk in this condition. Maybe 3 times. He looks up. "I won't slow you down." Beaumont meets his eyes, cold, honest. "You will. But we will not leave you." Tex feels a heaviness in his chest that has nothing to do with broken ribs. "Why?" he asks. Beaumont answers simply, "Because the Americans fight for our sky, so we fight for your escape." Claire finishes binding Tex's ribs tightly, tugging the bandage until it holds firm. He gasps, but nods his thanks. Beaumont stands. "Rest for 1 hour. Then we move." Tex leans back, letting the fire's warmth soak into his numb fingers. He pulls the photo of his wife from his pocket again. The flames reflect off its glossy surface. She looks alive, hopeful, waiting. It gives him strength. A sudden rustle of branches snaps every head toward the tree line. The guards lift their rifles. Beaumont grabs his carbine. Claire snatches a pistol from the dirt. Tex pushes himself upright despite the pain, hand on his sidearm. A quiet whistle echoes through the trees, 3 notes spaced evenly. Beaumont lowers his weapon slightly. "A scout," he says. A man emerges from the darkness, young, breathless, eyes wide. He hurries to Beaumont, whispering urgently in French. Tex only catches fragments. "Roadblock. Soldiers. Dogs. Too soon. Patrols everywhere." Beaumont's face hardens. He turns to Tex, jaw clenched. "They know you survived the crash." Tex grips the log, knuckles white. Beaumont points south. "We leave now. The Germans are closing the forest from 3 sides. If we wait another minute..." He doesn't finish the thought. He doesn't need to. Tex forces himself to his feet, every nerve screaming. "Then let's move," he says. Beaumont nods once, sharp and final. The resistance fighters gather their weapons, stamp out the fire, and vanish into the night like shadows with purpose. Tex limps after them, deeper into the darkness, deeper into danger, deeper into a fight he never expected to survive. But survival isn't guaranteed. Only pursuit, only the cold, only the sound of distant German dogs drawing closer. The forest closes around them like a living thing. Branches claw at Tex's torn flight suit. Frost crunches underfoot despite every effort to stay silent. The moon breaks through the treetops in thin silver slashes, just enough light to make shadows look like crouching figures. The Maquis move with practiced precision. Silent hand signals, perfectly timed pauses, listening before every step. Beaumont leads them through an invisible path only locals could know, weaving between ravines, skirting bogs, hugging the darkest parts of the forest. Tex follows at the rear, Claire close beside him, ready to catch him if his legs give out. Pain radiates through his ribs with every breath. His vision blurs at the edges. He keeps one hand pressed against his side, the other gripping a fallen branch to use as a makeshift cane. But he keeps moving. For his wife. For the child she's carrying. For the promise of going home. And because stopping isn't an option. Not with dogs in the distance. The barks echo again, closer now. A guttural, eager sound. Several dogs, maybe 6 or 7, following a trail with the single-minded hunger of trained hunters. Beaumont raises a fist. The group stops instantly. Tex leans against a tree, sucking in shallow breaths. His ribs feel like splintered glass. Beaumont points to the left, a ravine, steep and choked with roots. He whispers, "Down." Quiet. Tex stares. "Down? You sure that's safe?" Claire answers instead. "No. But it's better than dying." The Maquis descend first, sliding on the frozen soil, catching branches and rocks as they go. Tex follows, but his foot slips on the frost and he falls, hard. Pain explodes through his chest. He bites back a shout. Claire drops beside him, catching his arm. "Slowly," she whispers. "Lean forward. Let me help." Together they slide the rest of the way down. The ravine is narrow, dark, the air colder. A small stream trickles through the bottom, the water black in the moonlight. Beaumont crouches, listening. The dogs grow louder, barking sharply, frantic. "Scheisse! Ist hier irgendwo!" A German voice rolls across the treetops. Tex's pulse races. Beaumont hisses, "Into the water. Now, it will hide your scent." The Maquis splash into the shallow stream without hesitation. Tex follows, gritting his teeth as icy water surges around his boots and up to his shins. The cold stabs straight into his bones. They move as fast as they can, wading through the twisting creek bed. Roots dip overhead. Mud sucks at their boots. Every movement is a battle not to slip and drown in the freezing current. Behind them, voices multiply. Flashlights cut between the trees above. Dogs snarl, pulling at leashes, noses to the ground. Beaumont signals sharply, "Stop!" The whole group freezes mid-stride. The forest goes still. A single beam of light sweeps across the top of the ravine, then stops. Tex holds his breath. A German soldier stands directly overhead, scanning the darkness below. The dog beside him whines, ears pricked, pulling toward the ravine. The soldier curses and shines the light further down. The beam skims across the roots and mud just 10 feet from where Tex stands chest deep in the stream, half hidden behind a fallen log. Claire grips his arm so tightly her fingers dig into his skin. The soldier calls out to his comrades. The dog barks, once, sharp. Tex's heart feels like it will burst. Then, a distant whistle, another soldier's voice. "Hier drüben, frische Spuren." Fresh tracks, somewhere else. The search shifts, flashlights swing away, dogs pull in a new direction. The patrol moves off, their voices fading through the trees. Beaumont gestures silently. They move again. For another mile, they push through the stream until Tex's legs are so numb he can barely feel them. His breath shudders with every exhale. His ribs feel like cracked stone. At last, Beaumont halts at a bend in the ravine and motions the group out of the water. Tex collapses to his knees on the bank, gasping, shaking uncontrollably from cold and exhaustion. Claire kneels beside him. "You cannot continue like this," she whispers. Tex laughs weakly. "Not really up to me anymore." Beaumont crouches in front of him, studying his face. The pale skin, the clenched jaw, the way his hands tremble despite his effort to hide it. "You walk another 20 kilometers, Beaumont says quietly, "and you will die." Tex looks up at him, breathing hard. "I don't have a choice." Beaumont's expression shifts, hardens, then softens. He reaches into his coat and pulls out a folded map. "There is another way," he says. "Shorter, but more dangerous." Tex manages a faint smirk. "Define dangerous." Beaumont points to the map, to an old, overgrown road, to an abandoned stone manor, to a German checkpoint placed on the only bridge that crosses the river south. Claire's face tightens. "That bridge is suicide." "No," Beaumont says. "It is our only chance." He turns to Tex. "You want to live, Captain? You want to see your wife again?" Tex nods. Beaumont folds the map and stands. "Then we take the bridge." The woods go silent around them. A cold wind cuts through the trees. Tex pushes himself upright, leaning hard on his makeshift cane. "Lead the way," he says. Beaumont gives a grim nod. And they disappear deeper into the frozen forest, heading straight toward the most dangerous crossing in all of occupied France. They travel for hours under a moon that seems too bright, too watchful. The forest thins, giving way to rolling fields rimmed with frost. Here, the Maquis moves slower, hunched low, every silhouette a potential pair of German eyes. Tex feels the cold burrowing under his skin, settling deep into his cracked ribs. Each breath is a blade. He tightens the straps on his torn parachute harness, trying to keep pressure on the worst of the injury. Claire watches him from time to time, her expression tight with worry. But she says nothing. She knows the stakes. They all do. Finally, Beaumont raises a closed fist. "Stop." The group freezes like statues. Ahead, the outline of a massive structure materializes out of the fog. A crumbling stone manor, its windows shattered, walls blackened by old fire scars. The skeletal remains of a burned roof loom like ribs of a dead animal. Tex frowns. "This the place?" Beaumont nods. "The Beaufort estate. Abandoned since '39. Locals call it Le Château des Ombres." The Manor of Shadows. "Why here?" Tex asks. "Because," Beaumont replies, "we are not the only ones who use this ruin." He signals two Maquis scouts. They split off into the darkness, disappearing toward the manor's flanks. Claire leans close to Tex. "He's checking if the Germans are inside." Tex nods. He expected as much. The wind whistles through the broken stone, creating faint, eerie tones like whispers. Tex shivers, not from fear, but from the cold settling into his bones. His body feels heavier every minute. 5 tense minutes pass. Then a soft whistle. One of the scouts. Beaumont gestures. They approach the manor. Inside, the air is colder still. The entrance hall opens into a cavernous space littered with collapsed beams, broken furniture, and centuries-old stonework now cracked with moss. A faint glow flickers in one corner of the room. Tex tenses. until he realizes it's a candle. And beside it sits an old man with a wool cap pulled low, hands wrapped around a mug of something steaming. Beaumont steps forward. "Bonsoir, Monsieur Arnaud." The old man smiles with surprisingly sharp eyes. "Bonsoir, mon garçon. Brought company this time?" Beaumont nods toward Tex. "An American airman. We need the South Bridge." Arnaud's smile fades. "Then you need more than luck," the old man mutters. "You need a ghost watching over you." Tex studies him. "And you're the ghost?" Arnaud chuckles. "No, I just live here with them." Tex raises an eyebrow. Claire gives him a look that says, "Don't ask." Beaumont approaches the old man with quiet respect. "Is the bridge still guarded?" Arnaud nods grimly. 2 MG-42 positions, 4 patrols, 1 truck, and a captain who doesn't sleep. Then he adds, "And tonight, they're expecting trouble." Tex's stomach drops. "Expecting us?" Arnaud shrugs. "Someone. You, a Maquis unit, a wandering cow. Who knows? The Germans are paranoid." Claire turns to Beaumont, whispering sharply, "We can't go through that checkpoint." Tex can barely stand. Tex straightens despite the pain. "I can stand just fine." She gives him a look. "Barely." He ignores it. "Beaumont, there another route?" Beaumont hesitates. "There is a way around the checkpoint, but..." Tex's patience is wearing thin. "But what?" Arnaud stands and hobbles closer. "But it goes through the cellar," he says darkly, "and the cellar goes under the ground." Tex squints. "I'm not afraid of basements." "You should be," Arnaud replies. "The Germans used it before they abandoned the manor. Locked people down there. Some came out. Some didn't." Tex feels a chill that has nothing to do with the cold. Claire folds her arms. "The stories say the place is haunted." Tex sighs. "Fantastic." Arnaud gives a satisfied nod. "At least one of you has sense." Then he points toward a sagging wooden door on the far left. "That leads to the cellar. If you survive what's inside, it will spit you out close enough to the riverbank to avoid the checkpoint." Beaumont turns to Tex. "You choose. The bridge or the cellar?" Tex wipes a streak of mud from his face. His ribs burn, his legs feel numb. He can barely stay upright, let alone sprint through machine gun fire. He looks at the cellar door, dark, rotting, breathing cold air into the hall like an exhale. "Well," Tex mutters, "if I'm gonna die in France, I'd rather not do it on a bridge where a German with a machine gun gets credit for it." Claire exhales shakily. Beaumont nods once. Arnaud grins as though amused by the madness. Tex tightens his grip on his makeshift cane. "All right," he says. "Let's go meet the ghosts." Beaumont and Claire step toward the cellar. Tex limps after them. Behind him, the old man watches with a sad smile, candlelight reflecting in his eyes. As Tex reaches the cellar door, Arnaud calls out quietly, "Whatever you hear down there, don't answer it." Tex freezes. Claire whispers, "What does that mean?" Arnaud doesn't blink. "Exactly what I said." The cellar door groans open, and the darkness swallows them whole. The wooden door slams shut behind them with a hollow boom that echoes through the stone passageway like a cannon in slow motion. Tex turns at the noise, heart jolting. Beaumont tries the handle. Locked. Of course. Only a thin slit of moonlight under the door remains, shrinking as dust settles in the air. Ahead, darkness, a long corridor of it. Beaumont strikes a match. The flare illuminates a narrow stone staircase descending into the earth, each step slick with moss, each stone sweating cold. Tex swallows hard. Well, that's inviting. Claire lights another match and hands it to him. Stay behind me. If you fall on those ribs, you're done. Tex smirks lightly. For the record, I liked it better when I was being shot at by a BF-109. She gives a small laugh, an exhausted, nervous one, and starts down the stairs. Beaumont follows. Tex limps after them, gripping the wall with one hand and the flickering match with the other. The deeper they descend, the colder it gets. The air itself seems heavier, and then they hear it. Not a voice exactly, more like movement, soft, rustling from below. Claire stops mid-step. Tell me that's rats. Beaumont doesn't answer. The match flickers as if a breath blows across it. Tex forces his voice steady. Probably rats. Big ones. French rats are tough, right? Beaumont finally murmurs. That's not rats. They continue anyway. At the bottom of the stairs lies a long vaulted corridor with stone archways and iron rings embedded in the walls. Old shackles hang from some of them, rusted, broken, swinging faintly with the draft. Tex shivers. There are scratch marks along the stones. No dust in them. Fresh, hard to tell. Claire whispers, people were held here. Tex can feel pain pulsing in his ribs with every breath, but he pushes through it. One step at a time, he mutters. As they move deeper, their footsteps become muffled. The sound dies too quickly, as if the walls swallow it. Beaumont kneels, running a gloved hand over the floor. See this? Footprints, heavy boots. Germans come through here often. Tex crouches, with difficulty, examining the marks. So someone's been using the cellar. Recently, Beaumont adds. Claire raises her match. Then why didn't Arnaud warn us about that? Tex exhales. Maybe he thought the ghosts were a bigger problem. Then, somewhere behind them, clink. A metal sound, soft, as if someone tugged lightly on a chain hanging from the wall. Claire spins around. Her matchlight casts jittering shadows. Tex lifts his own match, trying to spot movement. Nothing. But the iron ring on the left wall, one of the shackles, is still swinging. Beaumont whispers, keep moving. They do. Their path leads through an archway into a chamber larger than the last. The room is circular, with a collapsed roof that lets in a single shaft of moonlight. Dust sparkles in the beam like drifting ash. Below it, on the dirt floor, lies something unexpected. Boot prints. Several. And Tex's stomach tightens. A spent MG-34 ammo crate, recently used. Beaumont's face hardens. This is a supply drop point. Germans use this for storage. Tex curses under his breath. So the haunted cellar isn't haunted at all. It's occupied. Claire raises her match, and the flame goes out. Not from air movement, from lack of oxygen. Tex's match sputters next. Beaumont's lasts a heartbeat longer, enough to see movement in the far corner of the chamber. A shape, a figure, motionless, standing, facing them. Tex's breath freezes in his throat. Claire whispers, barely audible, Beaumont. Beaumont's voice is steady but low. No sudden movements. Tex squints through the dark, trying to distinguish features. The moonlight reaches the figure's chest. A uniform, German. Beaumont hisses, hands up, very slow. The figure does not move. Tex steps forward, carefully, ignoring the agony in his ribs. Beaumont, something's wrong. He lifts his match again, striking it with trembling fingers. The flame flickers to life, weak, yellow, barely clinging to existence. Tex raises it toward the figure. The light reveals a German soldier, standing, upright, helmet cracked, chest sunken, skin gray, dead, pinned to the wall. Claire gasps, clapping a hand over her mouth. Tex feels a shiver crawl up his spine. Jesus, Beaumont mutters. He must have been interrogated, tortured, then left here. Tex steps closer, and the matchlight lands on a message carved into the stone beside the corpse. A single word. Flüsterung. Claire whispers. What does that mean? Tex translates under his breath. Whispering. As the word leaves his mouth, a faint sound echoes behind them, like a voice. Close, too close. A breath against Tex's ear. Amerikaner. Tex spins, pain exploding through his ribs. The match goes out. The darkness is absolute. And from the corridor behind them, footsteps, multiple, real ones, boots. Beaumont whispers urgently, Tex, Claire, move, now. Type continue to generate the next section. You said, continue ChatGPT. Said section 9, the soldiers in the dark, previous section text. The match goes out. Footsteps echo behind Tex, Claire, and Beaumont. Beaumont whispers, move, now. Tex can't see a thing, not the chamber, not the corpse pinned to the wall, not even his own hands. Just darkness thick as wet cloth. But he hears everything. The footsteps, heavy boots, echo through the corridor behind them, growing louder, multiplying until the cellar becomes a chamber of marching ghosts. Claire grabs Tex's sleeve. This way, stay low. Beaumont pulls forward, one hand skimming the wall, knowing the layout better than either of them. There's a tunnel exit ahead. Move quietly. But quiet is impossible. Tex's boots scrape stone. His breath hisses through clenched teeth. His ribs throb in stabs that nearly buckle him. And behind, all too real, those German boots close in. Clack, clack, clack. Claire whispers, they're getting closer. Then something else joins the footsteps. A voice, a young man's voice, calling softly through the dark. Helft mir, bitte. Helft mir. Tex freezes. He recognizes those words. Help me, please, help me. Claire tugs his sleeve, frantic. Tex, it's not real. Keep going. But the voice sounds human, hurt, afraid, and worse. It sounds close. Too close. Then Beaumont hisses sharply. That's not a wounded soldier, that's a lure. Move! Tex forces his legs to work again, stumbling through the pitch-black chamber. The Germans behind them begin speaking. Real voices this time, sharp and clipped. Bereit machen. Prepare weapons. Vorsicht. Jemand ist hier unten. Be careful. Someone's down here. Claire whispers, Beaumont. How far to the exit? 20 meters, he replies. A beam of light bursts to life behind them. A flashlight. Then another. Then a third. The Germans have reached the chamber entrance. Tex sucks in a breath. They're sweeping the room. Faster, Beaumont orders. But Tex's ribs scream. He almost collapses. Claire swings under his arm, taking his weight. Lean on me, we're almost there. Stop talking, Tex grits out, and get me moving. Together, they stagger forward. The Germans' lights flick across the chamber, illuminating the dead soldier pinned to the wall. A murmur of surprise echoes from the troops. Then, Bewegung, movement. Their lights snap toward the dark corridor Tex and the Maquis are fleeing into. Shadows leap across the walls. Boots break into a run. Tex hears the unmistakable click-clack of a weapon being loaded, a Car 98K bolt sliding around into place. Beaumont curses. "They're aiming down the corridor." Tex looks back. A German silhouette appears in the moonbeam. Rifle up. "Down!" Tex shouts. Claire yanks him to the floor. A rifle cracks, the explosion deafening in the enclosed space. Stone chips blast off the wall where Tex's head had been a second before. Beaumont fires blindly with his Sten gun around the corner. Short bursts meant to make them duck, not kill. "Go!" he shouts. "Tunnel is ahead." The trio crawl, Tex dragging himself with one arm while Claire pulls on his jacket. Another shot explodes behind them, sparks flying as the bullet ricochets off stone. Tex grits his teeth. "I swear, next mission, I'm picking the route." Claire laughs breathlessly. "Shut up and crawl." Beaumont stops firing long enough to yank a small metal cylinder from his belt. A grenade. "Cover your ears," he warns. Tex and Claire flatten. Beaumont rolls the grenade back down the corridor. The Germans shout, a frantic jumble of "Grenade!" Then, boom! The explosion shakes dust loose from the ceiling, showering the trio as they scramble into the low, narrow tunnel ahead. The passage is so tight, Tex's shoulders scrape both sides. Claire crawls in front of him, Beaumont behind, the Sten held at an awkward angle. Behind them, the German soldiers cough through dust and smoke. But they're not giving up. Tex hears boots again. Troops regrouping. Beaumont hisses, "Keep moving. They'll come through after they recover." Tex forces himself forward. Every push sends pain screaming through his chest. But he keeps going, because behind him, closing in, he hears another German command, "Scheinwerfer!" Searchlights. They're bringing more equipment. More guns. They're not letting anyone slip away through this tunnel. Claire calls softly from ahead, voice trembling with adrenaline. "Tex, I see light." Tex pushes harder. The tunnel narrows again, forcing him almost flat on his belly. His ribs feel like they're grinding bone on bone. But then he feels cold air. Fresh, open air. Claire crawls out first. Tex drags himself toward the pale glow. And then he is outside. He collapses on wet grass, gasping for air. The night sky stretching above him like a miracle. Beaumont scrambles out last, turns, and shoves a loose boulder into the tunnel opening. "Won't hold them long," he pants, "but long enough." Tex lies there, staring up at the moon, ribs flaming, legs shaking. Claire kneels beside him. "Tex, are you still with me?" He manages a grin. "Yeah," he whispers. "Just remind me never to visit French basements again." Beaumont looks toward the river valley. "We're close enough now. If we move fast, we can reach the bank before they break through." Tex tries to stand, grimacing. And from the distance behind them, deep inside the manor, faint voices echo up through the ground. German voices, dozens. They're coming. Beaumont helps Tex to his feet. "Move," he orders. "The night isn't done with us yet." To his feet. "Move. The night isn't done with us yet." Cold moonlight washes over the hillside like silver paint poured over black earth. Tex clenches his jaw, his ribs screaming with every step he forces. Claire presses under his arm, practically carrying half his weight. Beaumont leads, scanning the open field with the barrel of his Sten. The river lies somewhere in the valley below, hidden in fog that curls like smoke between the trees. And between them and that river, open ground. Claire whispers, "We're going to be silhouettes out here." Beaumont nods grimly. "I know. But staying near the manor means getting cornered. The Germans will flood the estate within minutes." Tex forces air into his lungs. "Then let's make this quick." The three begin moving down slope, slowly at first, then faster as Tex gets his legs under him. Behind them, the manor rises like a black tower against the clouds. And from its broken windows, lights, flashlights, lanterns, maybe headlights. Beaumont curses under his breath. They're already searching the perimeter. Tex looks back and sees small pinpricks of light, the Germans fanning out around the estate like fireflies with rifles. Then, a shout in German, sharp and urgent. One of the search parties has found the cellar exit they used. Claire grips Tex tighter. "They're coming this way." "No," Beaumont says. "They're tracking this way." Tex gives a tired grin. "Well, maybe they'll get lost." Beaumont snorts. "They're trained mountain troops. They don't get lost." The wind changes, blowing from behind them. A gust carries the scent of the manor's smoke and damp stone. And something else. Dogs. Tex hears the faint bark, then another, hard, fast, alert. Claire's face pales. "They brought trackers." Tex mutters, "Wonderful. Just wonderful." Beaumont's tone sharpens. "We have minutes before they pick up the tunnel scent." He grabs Tex's good arm. "Tex, you run when I say run, understand?" Tex nods, though he isn't sure his legs can handle run. Still, he pushes, stumbling forward as they cross into taller grass. Each painful breath rattles his chest, but he refuses to slow. He survived a burning thunderbolt plunging out of the sky. He survived German patrols, sweeping barns inches from where he lay hidden. He survived the Cellar of Whispering Dead and the living soldiers hunting them. He wasn't about to quit now. Beaumont lifts a hand. Stop. They freeze. Ahead, through a dip in the hill, Tex sees movement. 3 silhouettes on the ridge opposite them, rifles slung, scanning the slope. A German patrol. Claire whispers, "If they see us." "They won't," Beaumont murmurs. "Stay low." They crouch into the grass as the patrol slowly sweeps its flashlights across the valley. Tex's ribs feel like molten knives when he crouches. But he grits his teeth and bears it. One of the German lights passes dangerously near them, illuminating Claire's hair for a heartbeat. Tex's breath stops. The beam moves on. Claire exhales faintly. Beaumont whispers, "Wait." The patrol reaches the end of the ridge. One soldier lights a cigarette. The others talk quietly, completely unaware of the 3 fugitives feet below them. Finally, Beaumont whispers, "Now, move." They slip through the hollow of the valley, sticking close to the shadow of a hedgerow. The sound of the river becomes louder, fastening into a steady rush. They're close. Tex feels a flicker of hope sparking in his chest. That's when everything goes wrong. A flare arcs into the sky behind them, bright red, rising like a comet before bursting over the hillside in a shower of crimson light. Tex's stomach drops. They've spotted something. Beaumont looks back. His face turns hard as stone. They found the tunnel exit. They know we're heading down the slope. The flare bathes the whole valley in red glow. Now the German patrol on the ridge sees movement. Their movement. A voice rings out. "Halt!" Claire yanks Tex's arm. "Run!" Beaumont shouts. "Go! Go!" Tex doesn't think. He just moves. Pain becomes irrelevant. Fear becomes fuel. Boots pound the earth behind them. German shouts echo across the valley, and then rifles crack. Bullets cut through the night, snapping past their ears. Tex stumbles. Claire drags him up. Beaumont fires short bursts behind them, forcing the Germans to take cover. Tex's vision blurs. He barely feels his legs. The river sound grows louder, angrier, closer. One more hill, One more push. They leap the last ridge, and the river explodes into view. A dark, raging current churning under moonlight, swollen from spring melt. Tex pants. "We can't cross that." "We have to," Beaumont says. "The Germans won't follow directly. Too dangerous in the dark." "But I can't swim with him," Claire cries. "He's hurt. He'll drown." Tex shakes his head, forcing breath. "Leave me behind." Claire freezes. "Don't say that." "Claire," Tex meets her eyes, sweat and mud streaking down his face. "You and Beaumont can make it. I'll hold them off." "No," she snaps. "Not happening." Beaumont steps between them. "Nobody's leaving anyone. There is a way across." Tex raises an eyebrow. "Hope it involves wings." Beaumont points downriver. Through the mist, Tex sees a wooden shape jutting from the bank. A watermill. Old, weather-beaten, half collapsed over the current, but still standing. A narrow service walkway runs along its side, barely. Tex swallows hard. "You want us to cross that?" Beaumont nods once. "It's our only chance." Behind them, dogs bark, German voices shout. Flashlights slice through the fog. They're almost on the trio's trail. Beaumont grabs Tex under the other shoulder. Claire steadies him. "Let's go," Beaumont says, "before the night runs out." And together, they limp toward the old mill, the river roaring like a beast waiting below. The walkway is barely wide enough for one person. Rotting wooden planks sag under Tex's weight, groaning with each step. Water rushes beneath, white and frothing, the sound like thunder in his ears. One misstep and the current will swallow him whole. Claire grabs his arm tightly. "Don't look down. Just step." Tex swallows and forces himself forward. Each plank threatens to snap under his boots. His ribs scream, his lungs burn, but he moves, inch by inch. Beaumont follows, keeping one eye on the pursuing shouts from the far bank. "Hurry, or they'll reach the river before we finish." The first plank cracks under Tex's weight. He freezes, listening as it groans, threatening collapse. Behind him, Claire hisses, "Keep going." He pushes forward. Another plank, another painful step. Water splashes against the stone foundations of the mill. Below, currents pull at broken timber like it's alive, hungry. Halfway across, a shout rises from the bank behind them. Down 10. German soldiers are on the move, sprinting toward the river's edge. The dogs bark furiously, leaping at the invisible scent of their prey. Tex stumbles. Claire grabs him, dragging him upright. "Almost there." One plank breaks beneath his left foot, throwing him sideways. He hits the walkway hard, pain lancing through his ribs. For a moment, he freezes, teeth gritted against the agony. Beaumont shouts from behind, "Keep moving, Captain. You're stronger than this pain." Tex grits out a laugh that hurts more than the fall. "Stronger? Barely." He drags himself onto the final plank. The river churns just a foot below. With a desperate shove, he reaches the far side, rolling onto solid ground. His lungs heave, his ribs scream. Claire scrambles after him, dragging herself over the remaining planks. Beaumont crosses last, helping her onto the muddy bank. The three collapse, gasping, shivering in the cold night. Behind them, the river rages, carrying the sound of rushing water, masking the yells and footsteps of the Germans still climbing down the near bank. Tex lies on his back, staring up at the moonlight reflected in the mist rising from the river. "We made it. I can't believe we made it." Claire sits beside him, brushing mud from his jacket. "Barely," she mutters. "But you did." Beaumont stands, scanning the far bank. "We're not safe yet. There's a cabin 500 meters downriver. The Maquis use it as a hideout. If we reach it before daylight, he pauses, voice low. We survive another night. Tex struggles to his knees, leaning on Claire. Another night? I've had enough nights for a lifetime. Beaumont smirks faintly. This isn't a vacation, Captain. You're alive because you fought in the air, in barns, in cellars, and across rivers. Now, we fight on foot. You'll make it, but only if you keep moving. The three start limping along the riverbank. Water sprays over rocks. The cold bites into Tex's lungs. Branches claw at his face. Every step threatens to open his broken ribs. And behind them, far enough that the river masks some of the sound, the German patrol splinters, searching, frustrated, their voices carrying over the rushing water. Tex grits his teeth. He clings to the photo of his pregnant wife tucked into his flight suit. Her calm, smiling face gives him focus, keeps him moving when every muscle in his body wants to collapse. At last, through the mist, they see it. A cabin, dark, nestled against a copse of trees. Smoke curls faintly from a stone chimney. Solid walls, a place to rest, a place to survive. Beaumont gestures toward it. There, one last push. Tex stands, leaning heavily on Claire and Beaumont. Pain screams with every heartbeat. But he moves, step by step, through mud, frost, and exhaustion, toward that cabin. Behind them, the forest and river grow silent again. The Germans have not given up. But the trio is just far enough ahead. Shadows among shadows. Ghosts themselves in the night. Tex exhales slowly, tasting cold air and hope. For the first time since the crash, survival feels possible. He touches the photo of his wife again. Almost home, he mutters. The cabin door looms ahead, a safe haven. Or at least, the first of many they'll need before reaching England. They limp the final few meters and slip inside. Wood creaks beneath tired feet. A fire pit glows faintly, warmth washing over their frozen bodies. Tex collapses against the wall, exhaustion and relief crashing together. Claire kneels beside him, checking his injuries. Beaumont stands at the doorway, listening for any sound of pursuit. For now, the river has swallowed their escape. The Germans are held at bay, and the night, long, relentless, deadly, has finally given them a reprieve. But the war is not over. Not yet. Tex closes his eyes for the first time since the crash, letting himself feel the warmth, the safety, the small victory that is survival. And somewhere deep in occupied France, the Maquis regroup, ready to move again at first light. Tex whispers to himself, exhausted but alive. One fight at a time, one step at a time. The first pale light of dawn seeps through the cracks in the cabin walls. Dust motes drift in sunbeams, sparkling like a promise. Outside, the world is quiet. Too quiet. Tex lies on a rough blanket, feeling every ache and broken rib. Sleep tugs at him, but he resists, listening. Claire stirs beside him, rubbing her hands together, warming them over the smoldering fire. "They'll be back soon," she says quietly. "We can't stay long." Beaumont leans against the doorway, eyes on the tree line. We wait for the patrols to retreat. Then we move south, toward the safe house Arnaud mentioned. From there, the resistance will get you to Spain. Then home. Tex lifts the photo of his wife, tracing her face with a trembling finger. "I thought I'd never make it," he whispers. "Not after the crash, the chase, the cellar, the river. All of it." Claire kneels beside him, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You're alive. That's what counts. Every step after that is just a detail. Beaumont finally speaks, voice low but firm. You survived because you fought, but also because people risked everything to help you. Elise, her father, Arnaud, all of us. The Germans are ruthless, but they are predictable. If we move carefully, you'll reach safety. Tex nods slowly, closing his eyes for a moment. Each breath is a battle, each movement a test of will. But he is alive. He is still fighting. And the thought of his wife, waiting somewhere across the channel, steals him. Hours pass. The sun rises higher, washing the valley in light. Footsteps are heard in the distance. German patrols moving on, searching elsewhere. The moment is fleeting, fragile, but it is enough. Beaumont gestures toward the door. We move now, quietly, stay low, one step at a time. Tex leans heavily on Claire and Beaumont. Together, the trio slips out of the cabin, moving through the frost-covered fields, past the river that almost became his grave, and into the sheltering woods beyond. The forest is alive with early morning sounds. Birds calling, leaves rustling in the breeze, the distant clatter of livestock in farmyards. Yet danger lingers in every shadow. Every crack of a branch, every movement in the undergrowth could be the enemy. Hours later, they reach the safe house, a modest farm hidden among tall trees, doors bolted, windows shuttered. Resistance fighters greet them quietly, ushering Tex inside. A bed is prepared, food offered, and a doctor examines his injuries. Tex lies back, muscles trembling, ribs bandaged, heart still racing from the night's ordeal. For the first time since the crash, he feels a small measure of safety. Beaumont stands at the edge of the room, scanning the surrounding woods. You'll be hidden here until it's safe to move you across the border, he says. From Spain, home, England. Tex closes his eyes, letting the warmth seep into his exhausted body. The sky outside is pale and clear. For now, the war feels distant. For now, survival has a face. A safe house, kind strangers, and the promise of home. He touches the photo again. Almost there, he whispers. Almost home. The war is not over. There are still battles ahead, skies to fly, enemies to face. But for this moment, Tex Morrison is alive. He survived the Thunderbolt's fall, the chase through occupied France, and the relentless shadow of death itself. He will fly again. He will fight again. But first, he will rest. The cabin is silent now, save for the crackle of the fire and the slow, steady breathing of those who endured the night. Tex Morrison, broken but unbowed, closes his eyes, letting the dawn carry him forward.